Guys, have I got the most amazing video you must go see. This is a true, actual sketch of Jesus back in the time of Pilate's day. And there is a book that was discovered, it was actually taken out of the Vatican, and it was retranslated in English in 1913. And this is of there was Pilate, and there was Cesar, which was over all of Rome. And then there was Pilate, which was a step down, but then there were men that were in charge of different cities to maintain peace and order. And at the beginning of this video, she will show you where it's from, the name of the guy that's from, the scribe or the guy that he trusted that was a Judean to be able to hear the Hebrew language and know exactly what they were saying. And he goes on, this is a report of Pilate. Look, it says Pilate's report. This is written down the actual events of what happened while Jesus was in persecution, and the Jews were trying to get rid of him. And it's so incredible. There is stuff in here that will describe to you who Jesus was and how he, look at those eyes. Guys, I'm about ready to cry. In 2018, Jesus had been on my case for since 2016. Read my word. So I got the best Bible I could find, the cipher.net. Go on to the cipher.net to www.thecipher.net. It's a publishing company. They published a Bible that was retranslated word for word from Hebrew and Greek, and it added everything back that it should. Like Acts 29 is not in your regular King James Bible printed by the authorization of the Pope, because they didn't want you to know about Acts 29. Acts 29 is not in your King James Bible. It goes to 28. Acts 29 basically tells you about how Paul was going through all of his ministry, and he went to all these places, and he ends up back to a place where there's a mountain or like a cliff where Pilate threw himself over the cliff. And because he didn't think he was worthy, but Pilate didn't do anything wrong. His wife told him she had had a dream, a vision of Jesus, and she said, he is a holy man. And she said, do not mess with him. And Pilate took her warning. And after Pilate 3 times had said, this man is not a sinner, I see no fault in him. According to the Roman law, you cannot persecute or do something bad to somebody that you can't find any fault in. But the Jews wanted him killed, and these people were demonized. They had demons upon them, that they were shouting for the crucifixion of Jesus. This talks about it. It gives an account of it. It is not in the Bible, but it is a historical document. It is a word for word description of what happened during the time of Jesus. And this guy was the one that was over Judea at the time. And he wrote an official report to Caesar of the events that happened. And I just want you to see a little bit of it. It says, I replied that Jesus appeared to me to be one of those great philosophers that great nations sometimes produce, that his doctrines were by no means sacrilegious, and that the intentions of Rome were to leave him to that freedom of speech which was justified by his actions. This guy that was over Judea actually listened to Jesus, found out that he wasn't saying anything against Rome, he wasn't saying anything against the Jews, but he was calling them out for doing wicked and evil things. And so he had one of his guys that were part of, the Roman, they call it a praetorium, which is basically one of the Roman guys had a place that he stayed, and it was kind of like the court place of Rome in a city. so that if people were doing anything wrong, they could go to the Romans as well as to the Jews. And there's some stuff that's incredible in here. I mean, you got to read this. And then on top of that, you need to subscribe to her channel, because there's another one that says Gamaliel was a Jewish person from the Pharisees or something, but he was a good guy. I mean, he told the truth. And he went to Mary, Jesus's mother, Joseph, Jesus's stepdad, and he also goes to Mary and Martha, who are the sisters of Lazarus, and because he's trying to find Jesus, but he gets all these descriptions about who Jesus is, what he does, what he says, and by the time you get done with it, it's going to blow your mind. I'm going to see if I can put that on this video as well. But anyway, so
safety of the province.
Okay, so what happens is this guy calls Jesus in. And he actually talks to Jesus. And he's telling Jesus, I want to protect you. For the last 2 years, I've protected you, and I've let you go and do whatever you want and speak to whoever you want. But he said, these people are against you. They hate you. And you want to know how bad the Pharisees are? In the beginning of this, he talks about when he first takes responsibility over Judea. And he says it was like the worst time in his life. He said he made a whole feast. He was a Roman, made a whole feast for everybody, and he invited the priests and the Pharisees to come and the Sadducees to come, and none of them showed up. They were absolutely rude and disrespectful to him. They hated him, and he said they were so evil. I mean, I learned so much from this document. It blew my mind. Let me see if I can get back to a little of that.
The termination of the passion.
He talks about, he would say to them, you are a race of vipers. You are not just your father. He literally says right here, word for word, retranslated from Hebrew to English, that Jesus called them a race. That means they had mixed seed of Satan and the fallen angels, and that's why these people hated Jesus so much, because they were of the race of the serpent, of Satan himself. And it says, you resemble painted sepulchres, which are where you put the dead. You appear well unto men, but you have death within you. At other times he would sneer at the alms or the giving of money of the rich and proud, and tell them the mite, which is like a penny, is better of the poor and was more precious in the sight of God. Let's see if I can go back to a little bit of the front about what they talked about with the Jews, how awful they were.
Multitude.
He said, and the young men had appeared in Galilee, preaching with a noble unction and new law in the name of God that he had been sent to him. At first I was apprehensive that his design was to stir up the people against the Romans, but my fears were soon dispelled. Jesus of Nazareth spoke rather as a friend of the Romans than of the Jews. One day in passing by the place of Silo, where there was a great concourse, or bunch of people talking. Concourse means talking. I observed in the midst of the group a young man who was leaning against a tree, calmly addressing the multitude. That was Jesus. I was told it was Jesus. This I could easily suspect, so great was the difference between him and those listening to him. His golden-colored hair and beard gave to his appearance a celestial aspect. He appeared to be about 30 years of age. Never have I seen a sweeter and more serene countenance. What a contrast between him and his hearers, the Jews, with their black beards and tawny complexions. This here document tells you that Jesus did not have dark skin, and he had light golden hair like Mary, but it was even lighter. And he goes on to talk about that he never seen a countenance more sweeter or serene, in contrast to the dark beards of the Jews, and their complexion was darker. His was lighter, and it goes on to talk about how his face had a continual like a pink cheeks, because it was from the sun, because he was lighter. If you read, if you get the Bible, the cipher, go on the cipher.net and then go order the King James Bible called the Millennium Edition Bible. It is King James, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. I will promise you that's what it is. But they added Acts 29 back in there. They added Jubilees. They added Ezra 4, which they took out because Ezra 4 is basically a revelation story. And God talks to him not only about the first temple and what's going to happen after and how they'll be scattered, but he asks them to go and pray and fast for 3 different sections of 7 days, and he tells them about the day of judgment is 7 years long. He also talks to them about if your family dies, where they go and what happens to them. If you have any family members that have died that you love, you need to get this Bible. It is extraordinary. These are all scriptures that were in the most ancient Bible that we have ever found, which was in Africa. What happened was, why do you think that Jesus came to John and asked John to write these letters to the 7 churches? It was because the 7 churches were 7 cities that were in, they called it Asia, but we think of Asia as China now, but it's not. Asia was in a Roman area. And these churches were cities that were nothing but Christians in these cities, and they were working together, they were living together and getting crops together and helping each other, and they were praying together. It was beautiful. But Jesus knew that there was going to be persecution on them. They were part of the first fruits, guys. They were part of the first fruits. And if you look up history of Rome, there are some videos I need to share with you. I'll see if I can find some of them to put in the text, in the description, so you can go look up some of these yourself. But I want you to know as much about Jesus as you can. This is extraordinary what I found. I am praying to Jesus for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and I want you to know him. This is like knowing Jesus like you've never known him before. And don't listen to pastors and priests in Rome that tells you you're never supposed to look at anything that's an extra biblical text. That is absolutely a lie from Satan. He doesn't want you. He made sure that the popes took out everything so that he wouldn't be outed. But if you get this Bible, Enoch is in there. And you have got to read Enoch. Enoch tells you about the fallen angels. He tells you about Satan. He warns you of what Satan is going to do, and that he is a reptilian-looking being. In the Bible, it talks about that the angels that are around the throne of God are fiery serpent-looking angels. They can appear as fire, they can appear as a snake-looking serpent or a reptilian, and they can also appear as light. And Satan was one of the first angels ever created. That's why he resented all of us so much, was because he wasn't about to bow down to us. God said, bow down to man. He created us. And Michael the archangel and Gabriel and all the other archangels bowed down to man because God was so pleased by Adam when he made Adam. And Satan said, I refuse to bow down to them. I was created before them. And he was prideful. And he was in the process of, when Adam was on this earth, he was busy building the New Jerusalem. And every single time he built a new layer to the New Jerusalem, he got a stone, a beautiful stone like sapphire or whatever, put on his breastplate. And when he did that, he got more and more prideful. And the angels would rejoice every time he made a new level, and every time he got a new stone on his breastplate. And he thought the angels were rejoicing because of him, but they were rejoicing because the New Jerusalem was being built. But he was so prideful, he didn't know any better. And so you really, if you have never read Enoch, you need to read it. And another confirmation from God that we all need to read Enoch, First Enoch, is the fact that it was in the Dead Sea Scrolls by the Essenes. If you don't understand about the Essenes were a sect of Jews that saw that the Pharisees were mixed seed and they were teaching false doctrine and they were doing horrible, wicked things. They were persecuting the poor and the widows and all the people, all the things that were said not to be done during the time of Jesus. And they said, we're not doing this no more. So they went out into the Judean desert and they made themselves some mikveh baths so they could do cleansing baths of themselves. They lived up in, like some cave areas and stuff. And they praised the Lord. They prayed every day. They ate together. They praised the Lord every time they ate food. They lived by the word of God. They lived by the Torah, and they lived by every word that they could ever find of God spoken in the Bible. And so the Essenes were on the hit list of the Jews, and luckily they saved some copies. But when a Roman emperor at the time of the churches, after Jesus died, this Roman emperor, he was so screwed up in his head and so full of demons. He said, I'm God. You don't even just bow down to me because I'm an emperor, but you bow down and you better say that I'm God. And so all of these Roman soldiers were doing his will, and he said, I'm sick of these Christians. He ordered that the Roman guard go out and kill all of these churches, all these cities that are the letters written by John, that Jesus told John that he got sent to them to warn them. Stay faithful and true, and Jesus knew they were going to die. He knew that was going to happen, but he said, be faithful to the end. He said, I will make you amazing in heaven. And so this is a history that a lot of Christians don't understand, that if you look up Roman history, then all of a sudden you start understanding more about why God did the things he did, why Jesus did some of the things he did. And so
I was told it was Jesus.
And so let's see if there's anything more in here I can bless you with real quick. I mean, this blessed me. There's a part in here that talks about where this guy sends for Jesus, and Jesus comes to talk to him, and he says, I've kept you safe and letting you do all these teachings for the last couple years, but he said, these people are coming against you. He said, I got people, the Pharisees, busy sending things to my office every day about how they're persecuting you. And he goes on, and it's a whole story. He goes on and he tells you everything that happened when Jesus was crucified. And there's more detail to it than we got in the Bible. You've got to go see this. This is a historical document. This is a historical document by the Jews. This is a letter written to Cesar of Rome. This is an official document. So go watch it. And it's called Acta Pilate, letter of Pilate to Caesar. Caesar is spelled Caesar, about Jesus, his crucifixion. Now, the channel is called psimonel. You need to subscribe. When you go find the title of this on YouTube, as soon as you get on it, click on to subscribe. On here, you know how you do the arrow button and you subscribe right here? Subscribe to her and do a thumbs up so more people will see it. There's been 814,000 people have seen this. It is incredible, but we need to spread it to all of people in America. This is not getting known by people. Please share it with every person you can find. Email it to every person you can find. Message it to every person you can find. If you've got a YouTube channel, then put it on your YouTube channel. We need every Christian in the world to know about this. It describes him. It is incredible. And while I'm at it, let me see if I can find to the other video. The other one is amazing. It's even better. Oh my gosh. It's, you're looking at all my different videos. You might find, if you pause this video and you see all the different videos I watch, you might get some idea of the stuff I watch. I'm trying to find that. Here it is. Okay, the title to this one, it's on the same channel, psimonel. Okay, this is called is Gamal, Gamma Leal, L at the end. This is a Jewish person that is in the Sadducees and Pharisees and stuff, but he's a good guy. He is sent out to go interview people to find out about who Jesus is. It's called Gamaliel, Gamaliel, interviews with Joseph, Mary, and others about Jesus. Oh my gosh, guys, this is going to blow your mind. He goes and he talks to Jesus's mother. I mean, this guy was alive during the time when Jesus was 26 years old. He goes and asks Mary, did it hurt when you had him? And she said, no, not really. And he also talks kind of in the beginning about Joseph, that Joseph seems to be kind of jealous. And during the time Jesus was on the earth, when he was first born and through his younger years, they knew the prophecy that Jesus would be King of Kings, but they were looking at him like looking as a real king. And so a lot of people, his mom and his dad and people, were frustrated with Jesus because he didn't seem to be interested in having a job other than to preach the gospel. And he didn't seem interested in a woman for a queen. And they couldn't understand that. And it talks about how in no shape or form did Jesus, he was nice and sweet to women, and he loved Mary Magdalene, and he loved his mother and everything, but he did not love them. He never had any affinity towards a woman. He was holy. And it talks about how if some woman came up to him and started flirting with him, he almost appeared to get upset about it and would walk away. And there is so much detail in here, guys. It talks about how he goes and talks to Joseph and Mary and gives details to things. And then he goes to Mary and Martha, which are the sisters of Lazarus. And Jesus loved Lazarus. You know through the scripture that Jesus resurrected Lazarus from the dead, right? And he wept. He wept over Lazarus being dead because he loved Lazarus. And this goes on to talk about Mary and Martha said that Jesus would come and sit on the roof with Lazarus, and they would talk for like almost all night. And then one of them was talking about how they would sneak outside and they would try to listen to what they were saying. This is going to blow your mind and is going to change everything you think about life. I love you so much. Please go watch this, and it's going to blow your mind and it will bless you so much. So it's called Gamaliel Interviews with Joseph, Mary, and others about Jesus. I'm going to put this and the others in the description so you can just go look it up. And please take the time to do it. I'm never good at making links and stuff, so I don't know if you can just tap on that and it links you to something. But if you have to just look it up and type it in the search, it only takes a second to do that, guys, to be blessed by something so amazing. I love you so much. Take care and God bless.